Welcome to Lady Siou Story. Here, I will guide you into the darkest corners of the human soul. Tonight's tale is adapted from Edgar Allan Poe's classic work, The Cask of Amontillado. A dark journey of insult, revenge, and ultimate punishment. Now, let us begin. I have always believed that the most terrifying thing in this world is not death, but the shame of being humiliated and unable to seek justice. Fortunato, his arrogance and mockery accumulated in my heart like venom. At that carnival feast, he taunted me before everyone, his tone light yet barbed. Montresor, your noble lineage is nothing but an empty name. You cannot even tell fine wine from ordinary. He sneered at my new clothes, calling me pretentious, without an ounce of taste. The crowd laughed, yet I maintained a calm facade, while inside, a fire burned fiercely. What made it even more unbearable was how he mimicked my voice, portraying me as a hypocritical, pitiful, and incompetent man. His mockery was like a knife, slicing away my dignity, inch by inch. At that moment, a blazing desire for revenge ignited within me, not for wealth, not for pride, but to cleanse the humiliation he had publicly inflicted. I knew Fortunato's passion for wine, especially Amontillado sherry, was insatiable. His arrogance left him blind to temptation. I seized this weakness, telling him I possessed a cask of the rarest Amontillado, but I could not be certain of its authenticity. His eyes lit up immediately, excitement flashing across his face as he begged me to take him to verify it. I feigned hesitation, then, with meticulous care, guided him toward the family's underground wine cellar. The staircase was narrow and dark, the air heavy and cold, carrying the musty scent of damp earth. The torchlight flickered on the walls, casting twisted shadows, like spirits of the underground watching our every move. Fortunato's breath was heavy, tinged with wine, each step on the stone echoing down the long corridor, a prelude to death. I pretended to inspect the precious cask, my fingers brushing the bottle, a faint, cold smile tugging at my lips. He leaned in eagerly, eyes gleaming with desire and pride, utterly unaware of the danger that awaited him. At last, I led him to the far end of the cellar, where a narrow, hidden chamber lay concealed. The iron door was thick and cold, its surface corroded with rust, as if it had not been opened for decades, a tomb long forgotten. I pushed the door, and the harsh screech of metal against metal echoed, as though awakening slumbering spirits. Fortunato stepped eagerly into the chamber, his footsteps resonating within the confined space. His wine-laden laughter filled the room, utterly oblivious to the cage he was entering. The moment he crossed the threshold, I slammed the heavy iron door shut. The chains rattled, locking into place with a dull, final thud. Fortunato froze, then shook the door violently, his voice trembling with fear and accusation. "Montresor, what is the meaning of this?" I offered no reply. Instead, I turned and took up bricks and mortar, beginning to build a wall outside the chamber. The bricks fell with weighty thuds, the mortar, cold as blood, filled the gaps between them. At first, he thought it a prank, laughing nervously, trying to appear composed. But as layer upon layer of bricks rose, his voice changed, from clear laughter to urgent cries, then to piercing, shrill screams. He battered the iron door frantically, the sound echoed in the tiny chamber, rattling my eardrums. Yet to me, the noise was not a warning but a stimulus, each scream seemed to applaud my efforts, urging me to lay the next brick with even greater speed. I could feel it, with every brick laid, his connection to the world was severed inch, by my own hand. His screams were gradually buried, fading from clarity to obscurity, until they were swallowed by the abyss beneath. When the final brick was set, the wall restored into a solid, seamless stone barrier, as if the chamber had never existed. The world fell into a deathly silence, and Fortunato's voice vanished forever behind it. I gazed upon my work, a cold satisfaction rising in my chest. I believed my revenge was complete. Days later, Fortunato's disappearance was discovered. The police arrived, inquiring, having learned that the last place he had been seen was at my home, tasting wine. The thrill of my revenge rendered me unnaturally calm. I answered their questions with composed precision, even guiding them down into the cellar. I pointed to the casks of Amontillado sherry in the corner and said evenly, "Yes, he came, tasted some wine." But in the end, he scoffed at my cellar, calling the wine crude, and departed. My tone was measured, carrying a faint trace of offended resignation. The officers inspected the cellar meticulously, their footsteps echoing off the stone walls. I watched them pace back and forth, pausing repeatedly before that very wall, yet never detecting anything amiss. Behind it, Fortunato had already become a silent secret; before it, the police could only leave empty-handed. I smiled as I saw them off, secretly reveling in my triumph. Watching their figures vanish through the doorway, I could hardly restrain myself from applauding the perfection of my plan. Yet, the more I reveled in Fortunato's suffering, the deeper I sank into the fear of being discovered. I constantly felt eyes watching me from the corners of my home, and often sensed footsteps lightly brushing past me, the air thick with the damp, earthy scent of the cellar. Fortunato's shadow flickered endlessly along the corridors, and his low, haunting voice echoed in my ears. "Why did you kill me?" I knew it was but a hallucination, yet I dared not tell anyone. I could only bury the terror deep within my heart. But the visions grew stronger. In the dead of night, the smell of damp earth returned, heavy and oppressive, pressing upon me like stone walls. My chest felt gripped by invisible hands, each breath a struggle, echoing the panic of Fortunato trapped in that chamber long ago, gasping for air in terror. In dreams, I was entombed within brick walls, each suffocating gasp jolting me awake. Sleepless nights became torment, and every shadow seemed to conceal his furious gaze. At last, one day, I utterly broke. My chest convulsed violently as I grasped my family in desperation, trembling, pleading to be taken to the hospital. They hurriedly carried me to the ward. But even on the bed, I could no longer suppress the torment; the weight of my own guilt crushed my mind. I screamed hoarsely. "Fortunato has been tormenting me all this time." The doctors looked on, bewildered, as I roared on. "Call the police. I killed Fortunato." In that moment, I confessed everything. The doctors immediately notified the authorities; there was no turning back. I laid bare my secret. The police were stunned; this truth I had concealed for over a decade. Now, broken and losing my sanity, I could only beg them to end my suffering. They descended to the family's underground cellar, pried open the seemingly ordinary brick wall, and at last, the bones were revealed to daylight. In that instant, the revenge I had once proudly executed was no longer triumph; it had become the chains that bound me. The court sentenced me to imprisonment. At last, I paid the price for my crimes. Even now, with every breath, in every shadow, Fortunato's spectre roams my mind. His angry eyes, his questioning voice, they have become a judgment I can never escape. The true punishment is far heavier than any brick wall. Revenge begins with insult and ends in destruction. Montresor believed he had triumphed in Fortunato's suffering, yet he did not realize that the wall had also sealed his own peace. A fleeting thrill brings with it endless shadows. Lies and schemes may deceive the eyes of the world, but they cannot fool the judgment of one's own conscience. Hallucinations, suffocation, terror, these are not the curses of the dead, but the most genuine torments of guilt. This story teaches us that hatred is like a poison. You may think you are forcing it upon another, yet in the end, it corrodes you first. True liberation does not lie in revenge, but in letting go; true courage does not lie in concealment, but in admission. Revenge never brings peace, it only plunges the soul into deeper imprisonment. Only by choosing forgiveness, forgiving others and forgiving oneself, can one hope to emerge from the darkness. And that is tonight's story, adapted from Edgar Allan Poe's classic work, The Cask of Amontillado. The thrill of revenge, in the end, brings nothing but endless torment and punishment. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to like, subscribe to Lady Siou Story, and turn on the notification bell, so you won't miss the next dark and captivating story. See you next time.